Hello and welcome to our third and final Live at Lunch session of the week. We started these sessions during Pension Awareness Week in September 2020, and we were overwhelmed in a positive way with how many of you wanted to join us and learn about your pension. So we decided to give you what you want and provide you with some more sessions. It's great to have you here. If you're a newcomer, a very warm welcome to you. I hope you'll get something valuable out of today. And if you're coming back for more, well, great to see you here as well. You obviously value your pension, and rightfully so, as it is your second largest benefit after pay. We do appreciate that giving up lunch is not easy. And if you're anything like me, you've probably got a barm cake staring at you for 1 minute past 1. So hopefully you'll get something really valuable out of today, and then we'll let you go and have your lunch. So today we are going to be talking to you about the 2015 remedy, also known as the McLeod judgment. It's a subject obviously close to a lot of you as well. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. Please do make sure that you've got a pen, paper or a digital device if you want to make notes. You may want to get yourself a cup of tea, coffee, glass of water, or even a couple of chocolate biscuits to tide you over. We'd like you to take three things away from today as well. Firstly, to visit the scheme website if you haven't done already. It is a great place to get some information on your pension, and especially to find out more about the McLeod or the 2015 Remedy programme. You can find the scheme website just below here in the link, or it is www.civilservicepensionscheme.org.uk. We'd also like you to register or visit the portal if you have done already. The portal is a great place to find information as well. You can update your personal information, including your address and your telephone number. You can change or alter your death benefit nomination, and you can view previous annual benefits statements. So it's a great place to start. We'd also like you to bookmark or favourite the McLeod 2015 Remedy page on the scheme website, as it is the first place that you will find out any new information about this piece of work. Again, you can find the link in the chat box because it will come up for you now. Now, your pension is one of your best benefits as part of your total reward package. As I've already mentioned, it is your second biggest benefit after pay. It offers things like death benefit nomination and also inflation-proof cover, so it keeps going up as the years go on. It's important to be thinking about your pension from the start of your career, in the middle, and towards coming up to retirement. It's never too early, and it's never too late to think about it, especially if you want to have a comfortable lifestyle when you come to retirement. Today, we're going to watch a short video on the subject of the 2015 Remedy. This will give you a bit of an overview to the subject, as in where it's come from, where we are, and where we plan on going with this. So you don't have to take notes, but if you do want to, please do so. We will be putting the video up on the scheme website within the next week to 2 weeks as well. So if you want to sit back, relax, and watch this, please do so. We are recording this session today as well. So again, don't feel like you have to make notes, or if you miss something, you can go back and watch it. It should be online within the next week to 2 weeks. We're going to watch the video now, and I hope you enjoy it.
In 2015, the government made changes to pensions for public service workers. The changes were introduced at the time to protect those closest to retirement, who would have the least time to plan. This was based upon how many years people had to go until they reached the normal retirement age, which meant that those civil servants who were below a certain age were automatically moved to the new Alpha pension scheme, and those who were within 10 years of their normal pension age were not moved to Alpha.
Because people were treated differently based upon their age, some public service workers raised concerns that this could be unlawful and took the government to court.
The court judged this difference in treatment to be unlawful age discrimination, and this decision is often referred to as the McLeod or Sargent judgment. HM Treasury undertook a public consultation in July 2020 to gather views on the government's two proposals to remove the discrimination.
These were immediate choice, to make your decision now, and underpin, to make your choice when you take your pension.
The consultation closed in October 2020, and at the beginning of February 2021, the government announced the decision to implement an underpin. This was the approach favoured by the majority of respondents. This means that in-scope members will be given a choice at retirement about which pension scheme benefits they would prefer between 2015 and 2022, which we refer to as the remedy period. The choice will be between the legacy scheme or reform scheme benefits in Alpha.
If you were a member of the Civil Service Pension Scheme or another public service pension scheme on the 31st of March 2012 and have service between the 1st of April 2015 and the 31st of March 2022, then this may affect you.
We will contact all affected members and let them know how this will impact them. This will be tailored to your own particular circumstances. If you are impacted, this means that we will calculate your pension twice for this period, once for Alpha and once for your legacy scheme, and it will be up to you to decide which is the best for you. The rest of your benefits will be calculated under whatever scheme you are in at the time, as normal. The 2015 Remedy is a programme of work aimed to understand what the MacLeod judgment means for civil servants who have been saving for retirement. We want to make sure that everyone has the information they need to make the best choice for them. It may feel a bit worrying for you if you are affected, but be assured you will receive a choice of benefits when you retire between legacy benefits or Alpha benefits for your service between 2015 and 2022. This is your choice to make, and the 2015 Remedy Programme is there to make sure that you have all the information and guidance you need to help you make the right choice. We will guide you every step of the way through the process, making sure you know exactly what you need to do and when you need to do it. We will also let you know about the support available. If you want to see updates, you can check the Civil Service Pension website, www.civilservicepensionscheme.org.uk/members/MacLeod Judgment.
Well, I hope you found that useful. It's a bit of a whistle-stop tour about this bit of work. Like I say, the video will be available again on the scheme website, so you can watch it back if you want to sort of go over a few bits and bobs. So absolutely do that. Just before I introduce you to today's panelists, I just want to say again, please do visit the scheme website. It really is the best place for you to find information about your pension, whether you've been in Classic, Classic Plus, Premium, Nuvos or Alpha, or even in partnership. You can find a whole host of information on the website. It's not difficult either. We have tried to make it really easy to understand. So if you're sort of new to pensions or you haven't really paid too much attention to it, don't worry, it's not complex jargon. It is available for you in sort of plain English as well. So do visit the scheme website, www.civilservicepensionscheme.org.uk. Now, today's panel is made up of Andy Jones, who is an engagement manager within Cabinet Office. We have Kevin Hughes, who is a pension technical strategy specialist within Cabinet Office. And we have Rosie Jeeves, who is head of member services at MyCSP, the scheme administrator. You can submit your questions via Glisser, the programme which will allow you to submit them and then we'll approve them. They are upvoted. So if you have a question in mind and you can see it's already been asked, please do upvote that one because we'll be trying to answer the most upvoted questions, the most popular questions first. We have got an awful lot of you with us today and we've got a lot of questions flying through, hundreds and hundreds of them. So we may have to take some of these away and answer them and put them on the website after the event, but we will try and get through as many as we can do today. Now, I'm going to go to Kevin for today's first question. Kevin, how do I find out if I am impacted by the MacLeod or the 2015 Remedy?
So for most people, there's a single date that's really important to remember and consider, and that's the 31st of March 2012. For most members, if you join the civil service before 31st of March 2012, then you're going to be covered by the MacLeod Remedy. Now, good news is if you're in another public service pension scheme, so maybe if you're in the NHS pension scheme or teachers or the local government pension scheme, on that key date, 31st of March 2012, then you're covered. There are a few complexities, as there always are, and if you maybe took quite a long gap in service, you left the scheme, went to work for someone else, then it can get a bit more complicated. But for the vast majority of people, if you were in our scheme or another scheme on 31st of March 2012, then it's likely you're going to be covered by the McLeod remedy.
Fantastic. Thanks, Kevin. Hopefully that's cleared it up for a lot of you, because that's quite a popular question. Andy, I'm going to come to you now. Andy, I'm part of Classic. Should I retire by March 2022, so that I'm not placed in the new scheme?
So the question about whether you should retire or not is entirely up to you. So the big date in the future is the 31st of March 2022, when the proposal, which was announced in the 2015 remedy consultation, was when a new scheme was going to come in, and that new scheme would essentially remove the discrimination that was found as part of the 2015 remedy. As to whether or not you should retire, again, just to reiterate, that is entirely up to you. You will still be impacted by McLeod, the McLeod judgment, or the 2015 remedy, as we're calling it, because you have service which has been accrued, or pensionable pension which is accrued in between 2015 and 2022. The big thing with it, when this new scheme comes in 2022, every single civil servant will be put into it. There'll be no exceptions. So I'm personally not a fan of people opting out. But it's like I say, it's entirely up to a member as to whether or not they should retire, leave the scheme, things like that. We can't advise on what is the best thing for them, I'm afraid.
Brilliant. Thanks, Andy. Okay, Rosie, I'm going to come to you next, being fair and going through all the panelists. Hello, this only refers to the Alpha scheme. What if I left Alpha during this period and moved to partnership? Is partnership affected?
Thanks, Nigel. Yeah, good question. So with regards to the partnership scheme, this is, if you will, a separate stakeholder pension arrangement that members joining the civil service are able to choose, rather than going into the main scheme, can go into this stakeholder pension arrangement that is funded by yourself and also your employer. Now, if you want to choose to remain in the partnership pension scheme, then no, McLeod, I was going to say, or the remedy programme wouldn't necessarily impact you. However, you do always have the option of switching, if you will, and moving from your partnership account back into the main scheme at certain points in the year. You're always able to do that. And the best information really can be found on the scheme website about how you may wish to do that, if it is something that you're interested to do. But again, just to summarise, if you remain in that partnership scheme, again, remedy wouldn't necessarily impact you, but you always do have the option of looking at scheme benefits going back into the main scheme, and therefore future benefits would accrue in the Alpha scheme.
Fantastic. Thanks, Rosie. Really helpful to understand that. Kevin, I'm going to come back all the way around to you now. Kevin, if I wanted to retire next year at 54, can I do that and take Classic, as it will pay out before 55, age 55, unlike Alpha, as I'll be 54 next year?
Yep. So this is a question about the earliest age at which you can access your pension. Now, for most people, that's 55. But the good news is that if you joined the Civil Service Pension Scheme before 2006, you can take your pension from the age of 50. Now, the person asking this question was about Classic. They would have had to have joined before 2002 to be in the Classic scheme. So that means that person will indeed have a protected minimum pension age, as it's called. They can take their benefits from the age of 50. So yes, it'll be absolutely fine to take the Classic benefits from age 54. However, if there's also Alpha benefits, those could only be accessed from age 55.
Fantastic. Thanks, Kevin. Kevin, I want to stick with you. When will we get the letter giving us the options of what scheme to take? Will this only come out when we're due to retire? Good question.
Yep. So people will be given a choice when they choose to take their pension. Doesn't necessarily have to be at retirement. For most people it is. And for many people that will be potentially many years into the future. So it could be in 2040 or 2050 for younger members. Now, also, some members will have already retired. Maybe some people on this call have taken partial retirement, for example, and some people might be retiring in the next year. In which case, if you're retiring shortly, or indeed have already taken some retirement, then we'll probably be contacting you shortly, probably sometime around 2023, something like that. But for people who are retiring after that, then yes, they will be given their options as and when they come to start receiving their pension, and they start going through the process of putting their pension to payment, which normally starts maybe 3 to 6 months before the pensions, they want the pension to actually come into payment. It's at that time they would make their decision.
Brilliant. Thanks, Kevin. Really helpful to know that. Andy, it's not a tax question, Andy, don't worry. If I move to Alpha now, will my classic pension still be based on my best year's salary, even if it is after I move to Alpha, or is it restricted to my best year while I was in classic?
Great question, and it's something that's really gets confused. People get confused about with how the final salary schemes that people used to be part of. So classic, classic plus, and premium is how their pensionable pay is calculated. We can confirm that people's final pensionable pay is actually when they retire. So if you retire, as Kevin said, in 2030, 2040, 2050, it would still be based on your pay at that point in time, not when you moved into Alpha. It's what's called a final salary link.
Brilliant. Thanks, Andy. I hope that answered the question. Rosie, I was put into the Alpha scheme in 2015, but I would have made extra pension contributions to the classic scheme during the 2015 to 2022 period I was excluded from. Is there a remedy for that?
Sorry, Nigel, can you just repeat all of that? There's lots of dates there.
Yeah, sorry, I will repeat that one. I was put into the Alpha scheme in 2015, but I would have made extra pension contributions to the classic scheme during the 2015 to 2022 period that I was excluded from. Is there a remedy for this?
Thanks, Nigel. The way I'm going to read this question would have been with additional contributions that they would have made had they have remained in the classic pension scheme. Now, with all of the pension schemes available into the civil service pension scheme, there has always been the option to purchase added pension. And therefore, although this member will have moved from the classic into Alpha, as they've said, in 2015, the option of purchasing added pension would have always been there for them. And they could have contributed additional contributions and built up new pension within that pension arrangement. Now, Kevin's talked about throughout sort of this Q&A and sort of the presentation and whatnot, that when the remedy scheme is introduced, and it's likely going to be October, I think 2023, that most people will start to see those changes coming into play, there will be choices that individuals will be able to make with regards to legacy scheme and whether it's Alpha or not. Once that information has been confirmed, more information can be found in the Treasury consultation document. It will then be outlined what options people will have with regards to their period of service between 2015 and 2022. And that's where I would pinpoint members to go and have a look. So this is all quite specific to an individual circumstances, that information will become clear as to what your options are and whether it will be remedied once all that information is published and legislation is passed.
Fantastic. Thanks, Rosie. Really, really helpful for that. We have got a poll that we're going to put live now for you as well. We'd be really grateful if you could answer this one. The first poll we're going to do is one of two. Do you have an understanding of how the 2015 remedy will affect you? We've got three choices: yes, a strong understanding, yes, a slight understanding, and no, none at all. Be really grateful if you could just let us know how you're feeling about it, and whether you think it will impact you, as it will help us sort of plan the work that we're going to be undertaking soon. Rosie, I'm going to come back to you now. I'm sorry, I'm going to monopolise your time here. Can a member of Classic take their pension before age 55?
Thanks, Nigel. Yeah, I think Kevin possibly covered this off slightly earlier, but as members of the Classic Pension Scheme will have been in post before April 2006, when legislation changed with regards to normal and minimum pension age. Minimum pension age for Classic members is actually from the age of 50, and therefore members are able to request to draw their pension early. It's called actuarial reduced retirement, and there is a reduction on their pension depending on how early they wish to take it before their scheme's normal pension age. But yes, they are able to. I'll again signpost members to the scheme website. So it's www.civilservicepensionscheme.org.uk.
Kevin, I think you wanted to interject something with that answer as well. Do you want to add something?
But yes, just to reiterate to people, Classic, you can always take it at age 50. If you're in a premium pension scheme, it depends on when you joined, before 2006 or not, whether you can take it at 50 or 55. If you're in a Nuvos pension scheme, you can only take it from 55. And if you're in an Alpha pension scheme, you can only take it from 55. So it is a bit complicated for premium members, simpler for the other schemes.
Fantastic. Thanks, Kevin. Whilst I've got you, I've got a really popular question here. It seems like it's a bit of a generic question, but it's obviously going to be impacting a lot of people. What does the Remedy Programme mean for people who have remained on Classic, Classic Plus and Premium? How will things change?
So it's a bit different for all of them. Generally, for people who have been, it depends whether you're fully protected or not, and whether you've moved to the Alpha scheme or not. If you've already moved to the Alpha scheme, which most people have, if you're aged under 58, you'll have already moved to the Alpha scheme. So in that case, you won't be affected by what happened on anything that happens on April 2022 when everyone moves to single scheme, because you've already moved to the single scheme. So you don't need to worry about anything that's being talked about for April 2022. You're already in the scheme. Whereas if you're fully protected, regardless of whether you're in the Classic scheme or the Classic Plus or the Premium scheme, then from April 2022, you will move to Alpha for your future accrual. Now, that's the first change that might happen, but only affects the people who are still in those old schemes. What then happens with McLeod is you won't really see anything. For most people, you won't see anything happen at all, really, until 2023, when you'll start getting probably amended annual benefit statements, which will show you how much you can get under both. The key point of McLeod is that you'll be given the choice for the period 2015 to 2022. Would you like to have been treated as being in your pre-2015 scheme, so Classic, Classic Plus or Premium, or would you like to be treated as having been in your post-2015 scheme? So from probably around 2023, you'll start getting annual benefit statements, which will show you what the impact of either of those things would be. Now, you still don't need to do anything at that point. That's just for your information. And then it's not until you get to retirement that you will need to make that choice to say, actually, I want to be treated in my pre-2015 scheme or my post-2015 scheme for that period. Obviously, at retirement, it will hopefully be quite a straightforward decision. You can just see which one suits you best. In many cases, it'll be obvious. Perhaps in some cases, it might be a bit more complicated. You might have to decide, would I like more lump sum and less pension, or the other way around? But that's a decision you'll be able to take, knowing exactly what you'd get from either choice.
Fantastic. Thanks, Kevin. Really, really useful. Right, Rosie, can you only take partial retirement once?
Thanks, Nigel. And apologies, I think last time I was on, my mute just happened to turn itself on. So apologies if I got cut off. So I'll keep an eye on that whilst I answer this question. So can I only take partial retirement once? Yes, that is very much the case. Partial retirement, just to try and do a bit of a summary for people that aren't aware of what it is.
Andy, do you want to pick this one up?
So yes, you can only partially retire once. It is a permanent decision that you make. You can't reverse it once you've done it. To partially retire, what you need to do is reduce your earnings by at least 20%. Now, the most popular way that people do that is going part-time, so reducing the amount of time they're actually in work, or you can downgrade. The one thing I would also stipulate, you do need to get permission from your line manager to partially retire. Just as if you wanted to go part-time, you do need to get that permission. So please do. Again, look on the scheme website. There are dedicated pages around partial retirement. There is a calculator you can use, but also use the pre-populated modeler on the portal to see what your pension is likely to be.
Brilliant. Thanks, Andy. Thanks very much for covering that. Having a few technical issues today, and I think it might be down to the weather. It's not very nice where I am. Anyway, the poll results are in. Interesting for this one. Thanks very much for filling it in, those of you that have done. So the answers came back as yes, a strong understanding, 8%, yes, a slight understanding, 54%, and no, none at all, 38%. So that's really good. It tells us that we've got work to be doing with you, which we will be doing shortly, and we will be contacting you as well. So thanks very much for letting us know. Right, on to the next question. Kevin, I'm going to come back to you. It's a bit of a statement rather than a question. When will a calculator be available to show pension estimates for each option? I need to see the options to inform when I can afford to retire.
So that's a very common question we get. Obviously, it's all very well as saying you'll get a choice of service between Alpha and your pre-2015 scheme, but what does that actually mean in pounds and pence for people? We will be working, there will be modelers available for people. Obviously, there's still a lot of the detail to be worked through yet. The principles, you'll be given the choice, are in place. But then there's a lot of technicalities to be worked through with Treasury, and they have to be put into legislation as well, which will happen sometime in 2022. And we'd expect to get a calculator up and running for people, probably a sort of similar time that you get informed of all of your choices and details in 2023 in your annual benefit statements. It's kind of, we generally think probably 2023 is when people will really start to be able to get the detail of what they will get in the future when they do retire through their annual benefit statements, which will also come with modelers. Probably a bit like the pensions portal, which Nigel has already mentioned, probably be something similar to that, but showing both options so you can see what you'd get if you make one decision or the other.
Brilliant. Thanks, Kevin. Really helpful. Andy, we've had a couple of questions on this subject. I'm just trying to choose which one to go to. I'll go to the top one. Classic had a lower contribution percentage than Alpha. If we select Classic as the better option for the remedy period, should we be compensated for having to pay the higher contributions?
So this is actually quite a big misconception. Back in 2012, all schemes started to pay the same rate and contribution. So irrespective if you were in Classic Plus Premium, New Boss, and subsequently Alpha in 2015, everyone paid the exact same contribution. So in short, no, people at this minute in time, there's no part of the consultation which is around getting contributions paid back. One of the things that is currently in process is around what's called the cost cap. There isn't much we can actually explain on that at the minute, and the reason being it is still with HM Treasury to determine how and what that looks like. What I would say is reiterate is please go on the scheme website. There is a page within the 2015 remedy dedicated pages around the cost cap for you to have a look at.
Fantastic. Thanks, Andy. Really helpful. Rosie, will a new scheme implementation on the 31st of March 2022 affect previous benefits accrued under Classic?
So anything that a member has accrued up to, you say in the Classic pension scheme, all the way up to single scheme coming in, the new scheme will come in and members, like I say, will go into the new scheme. And again, I think Kevin's covered this off in that when individuals are able to retire, they're able to actually have a choice as to their Classic pension benefits that they've accrued, and also they will have an option as to their benefits accrued, if you will, in the Alpha pension scheme. Members will have those choices, but anything they've built up in Classic isn't necessarily wiped out or taken away. It's more about giving members the option and choices to be able to do that. And these options will be made available to all eligible members to have those options once all of the legislation has gone through and we know exactly how the impact on individual members will occur. And I'm hoping I've not been muted there. So back to you, Nigel.
Thanks, Rosie. No, all good. We're back on now. It's brilliant. Right, next question, Kevin. I was in Premium and moved into Alpha. Will I be moved back into Premium prior to April 2022? I think, again, this is another common question.
Yes, this is a very common question. I think people are getting quite a bit confused about what actually happens on 1st of April 2022 and what doesn't. So in this case, someone who was in Premium previously and had already moved to Alpha, nothing at all happens to this member on the 1st of April 2022 because they've already moved to Alpha. The only difference that the 1st of April 2022 makes in the first instance is people who are fully protected, these are the oldest members, in this case you have to be at least 58 and a half, then those people, they would have previously have thought that they might stay in Classic or Premium until the end of their careers, whenever that might be. Whereas now it's been, so everyone's treated the same. Those members, rather than staying in their old schemes, will be moved to Alpha on the 1st of April 2022. But for the most of the members, and everyone under 58 on this call, nothing happens on the 1st of April 2022. What will happen going forward is, in around about 2023, people will be rolled back into their old scheme for the period 2015 to 2022. So in this case, the individual mentioned, he said he's already moved to Alpha. So when the rule changes in 2023, he will be, instead of having been moved to Alpha at whatever point, probably 1st of April 2015, he will instead be rolled back into the premium scheme for the period 2015 to 2022. At the same time, he'll also be given what's called the underpin. That's where the name, the deferred choice underpin, comes from, to say, when you retire, if you instead want what you would have got under Alpha for the period 2015 to 2022, you can have that. That will be your choice, but that will be at retirement. So for most people, you won't actually see much of any change until 2023. It's only the oldest members and those who have already retired who will start to see changes before 2023.
Fantastic. Thanks, Kevin. That was a really, really good overview of what's going to happen. Appreciate that. Now, this is a bit of an interesting one. Andy, what's in place for people who want to retire before April 2023?
Great question. There is nothing stopping you from retiring in 2023 or before April 2023. What will happen is your pension will come into payment on the scheme you are a member of currently. So if you're currently in Alpha, you'll be retired under Alpha. If you're in Classic, you'll be retired under Classic. What you'll find in the near future is those who have retired and drawn on their pension who are impacted by the 2015 remedy will be contacted and be provided with an option. So basically the choice will be, do you want to keep what you've got, or do you want either based on your legacy scheme or being treated as the Alpha pension scheme? So there isn't really a massive impact on retiring before the remedy and the legislation goes through. People who are captured by it will still get provided with an option. It'll just be after they've retired or done a retirement action.
Brilliant. Thanks, Andy. We've got another poll for you now. We do love a poll. Will you be looking for support and guidance in making your decision when asked to do so? It's yes or no. Really appreciate it if you could just click yes or no, and it will give us a bit of intelligence as to know what we've got to do for you. Okay, so next question. Kevin, will these changes impact on ability to claim a refund for being a single person with no dependents that I understand is available if that is your position?
Yep. So this question applies to members of the Classic pension scheme. So that's people who joined before 2002. In the Classic pension scheme, there is a contribution for which is 1.5%, which covers dependent benefits. And if someone in the Classic scheme reaches retirement unmarried, then those payments get refunded. So the changes won't really affect that. That still happens. Obviously, if it's the oldest people who've moved to Alpha, then they'll stop paying that 1.5%. So the refund will be marginally lower than it otherwise would have been, but probably those people are retiring fairly soon anyhow. So generally, no. The answer is all of the refunds that people would have got at retirement, if you're in the Classic scheme only, this doesn't apply to Premium or Nuvos or Alpha, only those members in the Classic scheme, you'll still get your refund at retirement if you reach retirement and you're not married.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kevin. Rosie, I've got a good one for you now. How do I know when I can retire if I am in both Classic and Alpha with different retirement ages? Yep, I mean, I can understand how that's confusing.
Sure, thanks, Nigel. I think the best way to think about this is almost sort of think of them as two separate pension arrangements with regards to having two separate pension ages. You're always going to have the choice under the old sort of final salary schemes, those with a pension age of 60. Or normal pension age of 60. And remember, you can take it early on that actuarial reduced retirement. You can always take that element of your pension without actually then drawing your other part, your Alpha benefits, if you will, until a later pension age applicable to that scheme. Again, you can choose to draw them at the same time, and again, treating them as two separate pensions. Your Classic pension, for example, pension age of 60, you could draw that at 60, no reduction. And then you could also draw Alpha benefits at the same time. And because that's being put into payment slightly earlier, the pension would have an actual reduction on it, because in theory it will be paid for longer than expected. Now, all of these options, again, are available on the scheme website, and you can go on and use Modeler and also online calculators, looking at them as two separate pension schemes, if you will, and that will help you decide when you'd like to draw your benefits, when you might be able to afford to, and also what those options are with regards to the right age and the reductions applicable to those pension schemes. Thanks, Nigel.
Thank you, Rosie. Kevin, I normally go to Andy for the tax questions, but I want to come to you today. What about pension taxation implications of the remedy? What's in place to address this?
So tax is always complicated, and there are a few different types of taxation that could be mentioned here. It could either be the annual allowance, which affects higher earners, or it could be income tax. I'll cover both, since the question could be about either. If it's the annual allowance, then it's all quite complicated, unfortunately. This affects the highest earners. And basically, what will happen is everything that's gone on since 2015 in regards to the annual allowance will basically change around. It will be based on what it would have been had you have been in your 2015 scheme throughout. Now, the good thing is this won't affect the vast majority of people on this call. And if you are affected by this, you'll know about it. So if you're sitting here wondering, I've never heard of the annual allowance, am I affected? Basically, you don't need to worry about it. It only generally affects the highest earners and those with long service. But the question could also be about income tax and people who have maybe started to receive their pension before all of this remedy happens in 2023. In which case, all of those consequences are being worked out as part of the consultation response. In short, it will all be worked out. It's not entirely resolved exactly what the methodology will be. Suffice to say, if people choose to have a different set of pensions to what they've already maybe started to receive and paid tax on, that will all be corrected as part of when it's all of the option is given to people who have already retired and they choose what they choose, and it will clearly be shown out on their options as if you choose this is the consequences, whereas if you choose that, this would be the consequences.
Brilliant. Thanks, Kevin. I'm going to stick with you actually because I've got a rather strange question. I don't think it's a very common one, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What is the default to pension type if someone dies in service who hasn't made a choice?
I might actually ask Rosie or Andy on this because I'm not sure. I mean, while they just maybe think of their answer, I would encourage everyone to make a death benefit nominee. You can do this in the pensions portal, so it is clear what happens when you die. But as to what happens if you don't make it, rather than me guessing, it'd be good if maybe Rosie, I think you're going to answer this.
Yes, thanks, Kevin. And again, just to reiterate what Kevin's just said, if you do go onto the main scheme website, and you go onto the carousel under members, there are some frequently asked questions under McLeod and Remedy, and this is actually one of the frequently asked questions under that. Now, to do with if an individual sadly passes away in the period between the 2015 and the new scheme coming in, and therefore the individual hasn't been able to make the choice, or even after and not been able to make that choice, we would, us as the scheme administrators, we are going to be looking and retrospectively looking at any death benefits that have been paid out through the pension scheme to see whether the options would have given a better, if you will, under one particular scheme or the other. And again, we would be then writing out to anybody in receipt of any death benefits, beneficiary payments, to actually offer those a retrospective choice. Going forward, again, if an individual, like you say, the new scheme comes in and the option is there, we again, through the bereavement benefits, will calculate, if you will, the two options and basically go with the better of the two, if you will, that would then be payable under the death benefit details.
Thanks, Rosie. Thanks, Kevin. Hopefully that's answered the question. It is quite a complex question. We've got time for a couple more questions. We've got the poll result in as well. These results, just in. Will you be looking for support and guidance in making your decision when asked to do so? 97% of you have said yes, and 3% of you said no. So that's good. Good to know that we can obviously be of service to you. Right, next couple of questions before we have to wrap up today. Andy, after March 2022, can added pension only be bought in Alpha by everyone? If people who remain in Classic can continue to buy added pension in Classic after March 2022, is this not unfair?
Great question. Smirking there, Nigel. So those who have started a contract already, it is likely that they will be able to continue to accrue. So if you set up a Classic pension before moving into Alpha and you've not changed it, you should be able to continue to pay towards that as long as you never change. If you set up a new contract after the introduction of the single scheme, or with, let's jump forward to when the single scheme comes in. and you set it up, then you will only be able to purchase it under the new scheme. There is still a contingent decision on what happens for individuals who bought added pension within that period of time between 2015 and 2022, which needs to be made. But basically, if you set it up before Alpha came in and continue to pay towards your legacy scheme, not made any amendments, then that will continue to accrue. But like I say, it gets a bit, the muddies get watered, the water gets muddied for the remedy period about what and how those individuals will be treated who have set up an added pension in that period of time. But after the new scheme comes in, that is the only one where you'll be able to buy added pension.
Thanks, Andy. Right, time for one last quick question. Kevin, I'm 60 in November and was going to continue working, but does this mean that if I retire at 62, I won't get my civil service pension until I'm 67?
So this comes to the heart of normal pension age, and there's a few misconceptions about what normal pension age is. All that the normal pension age means is the age at which you will get your accrued pension without reduction. So in Classic, that's 60, in Premium, it's 60. In Nuvos, it's 65. In Alpha, it's the same as your normal pension age, which for many people now might be 67. However, that doesn't mean you can't take your pension before then, because you can take your pension from minimum pension age. And for most people, that's now either 50, as we talked about earlier, or 55. So at the age of 62, you could take all of your pension if you wished. That's absolutely fine. But your Alpha pension would be subject to an actuarial reduction. That's not necessarily a bad thing at all. People see a reduction as being bad, but of course the Alpha accrual rate is very high because it has a higher normal pension age than the Classic and the Premium schemes. So what you might actually find is that taking your Alpha pension with actuarial reduction at age 62 is actually higher than you might have got from your Classic pension at age 60. But key point being, if you retire at 62, you can take all of your pensions if you want to.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much, Kevin. Right, that is all we've got time for today. Just to let you know, we have got some fresh FAQs that have gone on the McLeod 2015 remedy page today on the scheme website. So do pop over there and have a look, because there may be something that you've asked today, you haven't had the answer to it today, but it may already be up on there. And like I said earlier as well, any new information that we get, the first place it will be on that page. So please do bookmark it and visit it regularly. If you've enjoyed today, we will be at Civil Service Live in a few weeks' time on the 16th of June from 12:30 to 1:30 doing a bit of a generic pensions overview. So if you do want a bit more, do register on the Civil Service Live website and visit us on the 16th of June. We'll also be sending out a survey after today as well. It should take you no more than 2 to 3 minutes to fill in. It will be really, really valuable to us. Whether your feedback is good, bad, or indifferent, it will help shape the way we do things. It will help tell us whether you want different topics. It will help say whether you want me back as a host. And it will just really help us to give you a better service overall. So thank you very much for joining us today. Really do appreciate the fact you've given up your lunchtime to be with us. My sincere thanks to the panel members today who've done a great job answering some really complex questions. And that's it. All that remains for me to say is thanks very much and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thanks and goodbye.